All about fasting, y'all. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Another 72-hour fast in the works. I am right now about 68 hours. Just another few hours to go. And I'll be at the end of this week's fasting episode. And I know a lot of you are out there and you're fasting. And as I always say, there are three phases to fasting: preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, and breaking the fast. We're going to talk at length about the whole fasting process, but I want to spend a few minutes here as we get into that to talk about breaking the fast. What are some challenges that people will have while they're breaking a fast? I'll tell you, one of my challenges, it's not preparing for the fast. It's not getting through the fast. But my biggest challenge, y'all, is that's right, breaking the fast. Because when I get to the end of that fast, oh yeah, it's on. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, get off of medication, and who want to reverse their diabetes. That's where we are. If you're new, go ahead and put new in the chat because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music and let you know that we're happy that you are here. If you have questions as we go throughout the show, go ahead and put those in the comments in the chat and put a Q in front of it so we know that that's one that we want to, that we need to get to. If you've not already done so, we've been walking our way through the New Year process. This past Monday, we continued that process as we discussed the pillars for reversing diabetes. We're on pillar number 3, which is reducing sugar. So if you have not done so, go ahead and watch that here as we get into, we get into the weekend. Go back and make sure you watch that. We're coming up on Monday. We'll be talking more about that. I do see one of our community members out there. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing? She said, howdy, doc. Hey, Jennifer, glad that you are there. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us as we move into the weekend. Hopefully you had a great week and are excited about getting into the weekend. I know I am. And then, of course, next week is going to be a holiday, so a shorter week. We're going to be doing some heading out to the beach and enjoying ourselves. And so hopefully you've got some things planned as we move in that direction. And you know how we do it here on the show. I've got my monitors that we're going to be taking a look at here in just a minute, right over here. And then, of course, well, I thought I had my, well, no, I didn't have it. I thought I had my report all queued up, but we'll have that here in just a minute as we move into the rest of the show. But before I get into that, let's go ahead and let's do a quick check-in. And as you know, I always talk about 3 things in the check-in. That is how I'm doing physically, how I'm doing mentally, and how I am doing emotionally. Those are the places that people will find that they will have challenges. And so we kind of walk through that to let you know how I am doing as I'm going through this week's fasting. Okay. And so physically, the typical things that people will talk about here are things like feeling lightheaded, dizzy, sweaty, even having palpitations, feeling weak and tired. And I'll say that I have not felt any of those. And, over the course of the time that we've been together, there have been weeks where I felt more tired than others. I actually felt a little weak. And usually the tiredness is due to not having gone to sleep. This fasting, the challenge that I've had in terms of physical is actually I've been feeling nauseated. More so than I have been in the past. In fact, this week was probably the first week that I felt nauseated. And well, I'll talk a little bit about that actually as we get into our discussion. But it has been not just some mild nausea, it's been some significant nausea. In fact, at the beginning of the week, I actually broke the fast twice, because I do a 72-hour fast, but I was trying to start that on Sunday, and I went for 23 hours, 24 hours. I started on Monday, and I went for about 25 hours, and each of those times I broke the fast because of nausea. And a point that we'll make is one, make sure that we're listening to our bodies. But the other symptoms, lightheadedness, dizzy, sweaty, and so forth, not feeling any of those. But the nausea this time has been interesting. The other thing is, I think 2 nights ago we did a check-in. We talked about constipation, and so that's been something that, as you know, that I've talked about suffering from. And so I think those two kind of go together. Okay. All right. So that's physically. Mentally, I'm feeling clear. I'm not feeling sluggish, dull, or as though I can't process. I have had a little bit, I don't want to say a lower focus, but this week has been one of those weeks kind of getting back into the swing of things. You know, last week we were on a camping trip. The week before that, we were preparing for the camping trip. You know, and as we got out of June and July, it's been some busy months, and so I'm clear. I'm not feeling sluggish, but I do find that, you know, just kind of getting back into the swing of things has been a bit of a challenge this week. And then emotionally, once again, because of the same things, kind of getting back into the swing, this has been a slight kind of roller coaster, if you will. And as I'll point out as we get into the fast itself, that often there are things that are going outside of the fast, or things that are happening outside of the fast, that can cause the fast to not go as well as we anticipate. Okay, so that's how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then let's hop over and let's take a look at some of my numbers. And you'll see there on the screen, that is my Libre. And my Libre is saying 63. Down at the bottom, you'll see a break in the graph. That occurred because my Libre actually went out, or it ended. I shouldn't say went out. It ended, and I had to change that. If you saw on social media, probably Facebook or Instagram, one of those, we posted changing my Dexcom. So my Dexcom ended this morning, and just about 2 hours after, my Libre ended, so I wasn't in the studio when it ended. I did do a video that we'll post at some point. But 63 is what my Libre is saying, and then of course my Dexcom is saying 183. And you'll see down there at the bottom the break in the graph. And actually, let me do a 12-hour. Or maybe even 6. Well, 6 hours. I think that'll be 2 because I did it this morning, so more than 6 hours. So right there, you'll see a break right around 8 o'clock, and that's because I had to change. Okay, and then let's hop over and let's take a look at what my. So I've got my Keto Mojo meter. I've got my Contour. Keto Mojo, of course, gives me the glucose and the ketones, and of course the Contour only gives me ketones. So we'll take a look at those, and actually let me come over to this screen to give you a little bit better view. And so so let's get one of these Lancets, or test strips. Sorry, that said Lancets, but one of these test strips out. And this is the one for the Contour. Let's go ahead and get that in. And then here I'll start with the test strip for the blood sugar on the Keto Mojo. So I'll move that other one out of the way. Go ahead and get this opened and get that in there. And then I've got two Lansing devices, and you may not be able to see, but these are the opposite color. So this one is purple with a white top. This is white with a purple top. And, you know, I like these because they're single use, and they tend to, I mean, they do a good job. And the way this works is you go ahead and twist this top off. And there's a spring. This is spring loaded. So when I press that lever that you see, it will push the lancet out that way, and then poke my finger. But I'm going to do this view, and you should hear that. Okay, so hopefully you heard that. And then let's go back and let's see, did I get a good, yep, I got a good drop of blood. So we'll start here with the Keto Mojo, get that going, and then we'll hop over and go to the Contour. And of course I still need to get another drop of blood So 59 for the Keto Mojo and 60 for the Contour. Get that out and get this strip open. So this is the ketone strip. Get that in there, and we've got a good drop of blood, so let's go ahead and get that started. All right. And of course, as I normally do, I'm going to get that started, but I'm not going to show you what it is. All right, we're going to hop over here. Awesome. And we're going to actually take that off the screen because sometimes I go back to that view and I forget that it's there. Okay. All right. So so tonight we're kind of reviewing fasting, but I want to spend some time talking about breaking the fast. So we'll kind of go back and we'll start walking through the fast, but I want to start by talking about breaking the fast and what that means and what are some places that we may have some challenges. You've heard me say that getting into the fast, preparing for the fast, is just as important as the fast itself and, of course, breaking the fast. And that is so important, so true, because we can undo a lot of things that we do in the fast at the end, right, for lots of different reasons. And so I'm just going to list these, and we'll kind of walk through these together, right? So one, when we break the fast, and we'll talk about things you can do to break the fast and food and so forth in a minute as we get through the review. But one, we can eat too much too quickly. We eat too much too quickly. One of the side effects or one of the complications of fasting is that if people are not careful, they get through the fast, or they're moving through the fast, and it's almost like the last part of the fast. It's like that last ditch effort, right? And so they begin to perseverate, they begin to think, they begin to play through their head, through their mind, what is it going to be like when they eat? What are they going to eat? And they kind of build it up into this huge mountain. And so when they finally break the fast and they eat, they end up eating too much too fast, too quickly. And so that sets them up for weight gain. It sets them up for higher blood sugars, because the things that they tend to eat are not the things that will maintain ketosis or maintain blood sugar. They tend to eat those high processed foods that are high in carbohydrates. And that, once that happens, you will find, if you ever do that, that it sets up the next 3, 4, sometimes 5 days for difficulty with appetite. Okay? So they eat too much too quickly. They start with heavy fatty foods. That's another thing. They start with heavy fatty foods. What we want to do is we want to start with light for the first meal or so, and then kind of gradually introduce things as you go. Because the process of fasting puts the GI tract, particularly if you're doing some of the extended fasts, it puts the GI tract to rest. And so the goblet cells, which are in there, that are the mucus-producing cells that are there, that are supposed to be producing mucus to lubricate the GI tract, they're actually going to sleep. And so when you eat, right, they wake up and they begin doing their job again. So if you all of a sudden dump heavy foods, fatty foods in there, then they've got to rev up quickly, and they shoot up. And they produce a lot of mucus, and that can lead to some GI issues like frequent elimination, diarrhea, and so forth. Okay? So one of the things, so eating too quickly, eating too much, eating heavy fatty foods, right? So the composition of food, not just the quantity, but the composition of food. The other mistake is consuming sugary or processed foods, and I just mentioned that a minute ago. So when you eat sugary foods, highly processed foods, then the blood sugar spikes. When the blood sugar spikes, insulin comes out, and as soon as insulin comes out, then what happens? Then our appetite becomes stimulated, and so we get into this vicious cycle that we did a great job of getting through the fast and decreasing quote unquote calories. We've got all the benefits in terms of insulin sensitivity and lower blood sugars. But then now we go and we eat highly processed, highly sugary foods, and the blood sugar goes up. And when insulin comes, insulin brings the blood sugar down. It stimulates the appetite. That sugar has to go somewhere. And the body uses some of it, but then it stores some of it in the liver in the form of glycogen. And remember, the body stores 100 grams of glycogen in the liver, approximately. And for every gram, it stores 3 grams of glucose, or 3 grams of water. So when you eat, if you've eaten 1 gram of carbohydrates, or it amounts to a gram, that gets stored in the liver. It also now has to store 3 grams of water for each gram. So that's now 400. So 100 for the glycogen, and then 300 for the water. So we got 300 grams, or 400 grams that are now been stored, and that can result in weight gain. Okay, so consuming highly processed, highly sugary food. Ignoring hydration, and I mentioned that I was going to spend some time talking about this because it is also one of those other places where I believe that is probably what's going on with me in terms of nausea. I've not been doing a good job of maintaining hydration. Now that shows up in lots of different places. One of the things that I noticed is that I had a little bit more swelling in my legs. And we'll come back at another time and do an entire show about the effects of hydration other than electrolyte. People say, oh, you need to make sure electrolyte. Oh, you need to make sure because your blood pressure will drop. There's some other complications that can occur if we're not remaining hydrated. And this is not necessarily a fasting issue. This is just a hydration issue in general. Okay? So ignoring hydration is another place where people can have difficulty, because if they have been if they got through the fast but they didn't do a good job of hydration, now they start eating and they're still not drinking, and that sets them up for difficulty going forward. Okay, so hydration, huge. And then skipping small gentle meals. This goes back to that initial meal, right? And so you know that I have processed and I've been using different things in terms of fasting or breaking the fast. And I've been doing that because I've been trying to find for me what is the right combination of things, right? We started out with bone broth, vegetable broth. We did tofu. We did chicken. We did cheese. We did nuts. And so anyway, so lots of different things. As a matter of fact, one night we did brisket from a place here in town that we got, which was delicious, by the way. Okay. Right. So skipping small, gentle meals is another place where we can run into difficulty, because it goes back to this idea of having heavier things, and that causes issues for the GI tract. The next thing is not chewing food thoroughly. Sometimes when we finally are able to eat, we just kind of throw it in. And that can cause issues because the body has to now break all of that down if we've not chewed it properly. Remember, the body's just the GI tract is just waking up. And so you dump all of this food that's in there that's not finely chopped up, and the body has to spend time breaking that down, and that can set you up for difficulty as well, whether it's nausea, queasiness, even sometimes maybe diarrhea as a result of that, right? So make sure that you are chewing the food thoroughly. And if you're out there, what's the number of times they say they used to tell us when we were kids we were supposed to chew? Is it 32 times? I don't know if I've ever chewed 32 times. Yeah, yeah, I think it's 32. All right. Next thing is not listening to your body. Whatever you do, always, you got to listen to your body, because it will tell you what it needs and what things are, what's going on. So often the body's giving us signals, right? We feel a little queasiness, but we're like, oh, that'll pass. We feel lightheaded or dizzy or palpitation. Oh, that will go away. No, the body is telling us something, and it wants to make sure that you are listening. So listen to your body. This is for getting into the fast, during the fast, or even after the fast. A lot of times we're in the fast and something is going on, and we persist in the fast when we probably should actually break that fast and come back another time. Let me say that again, right? Just because you are in the fast, just because you are fasting, does not mean that you have to complete that fast if the body's telling you something differently, right? So listen to your body. It will tell you, because we want to make sure that you are safe, right? So safety, safety, safety. And then, of course, the biggest, I shouldn't say the biggest, one of the big things is forgetting to plan the post-fast meal. Yeah. So we do a great job of getting into the fast. We do all the things that we'll talk about here in a minute. We do a great job of getting through the fast, but we don't take thought for, okay, what are we going to have at the end of the fast? And so we show up at home or we show up in a situation and we end up just eating whatever is available. And that, right, often, sometimes, a lot of the times, goes against all the principles that we've just talked about in terms of starting slowly, not eating too fatty foods, not eating too heavily, and just kind of easing into it, right? So forgetting to plan the post-fast meal, right? So these are all things that happens when we are breaking the fast if we're not careful. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the nuances here in just a little bit as we get into the rest of the show. But I just wanted to spend some time initially here talking about breaking the fast. And then let me hop over and just say hello. So Jennifer, we said howdy. And then Life with Ron says, I find it easiest on my system to break my fast with high water fruits and veggies like watermelon or cucumber. Okay, so good. So Ron, thank you for putting that, by the way. So going back to this idea of listening to your body, part of listening to your body is seeing what happens with certain foods as you're breaking the fast. And so, for instance, in this case, Ron says that he finds that fruits and veggies that have a high water content work well for him, right? In terms of, I'm assuming you're saying in terms of both hydration and getting out of the fast. Now, one of the things that I did, Ron, if you go back and look at some of our earlier shows, I was breaking my fast with nuts. Like I love cashews and I love almonds, which don't have a lot of water, but they have a lot of fiber, and not a lot of carbs. But for me, when I eat those things, my blood sugars, it spikes up so much. Like I'll go from a 60 up to 250 or almost sometimes 300 just by eating nuts. And so I found that caused too big a spike in my blood sugar. And so my cravings, those cravings were, horrendous. And so there were times where I find myself, oh my goodness, I'm just ravenous. And so I had to kind of change that. But thank you for saying that, that those are things that you find that are good for you. Now, cucumbers, I think that is one that I probably can do. And maybe having a cucumber salad. I do have a salad that I'm going to break my fast with here later. And even in the salads that I do, I don't put tomatoes because tomatoes, once again, spike my blood sugars pretty high. Awesome. All right. Okay, so let's hop over and let's talk about fasting. Fasting review, things that you need to know. Things that you need to know. And I break fasting up into 3 different categories, or 3 different phases. Preparing for the fast, getting through the fast itself, and then breaking the fast. Now, we've talked about some things a little while ago about breaking the fast and some potholes. We'll come back and put some more meat on some of that here in just a minute. But preparing for the fast, there are 4 things that I want you to know. Preparing for the fast. Just as you prepare for the fast, in order to be successful in the fast, you've got to prepare well. And preparing well comes in a couple of different flavors. Number 1, you want to make sure that you are well rested. Right? That is like the pinnacle of fasting. Fasting is not just a physical thing, as we did in our check-in. It's physical, it is mental, and it is emotional. And you know, if you know yourself or if you know people, that when we are not well rested, then mentally and emotionally we are sometimes it's terrible, and then physically as well. So often people will get into a fast and they'll come out of the fast because it didn't succeed, and they'll say, well, the fast didn't work. Well, it wasn't really the fast that didn't work. It was the preparation for the fast that didn't work. And so the fast itself didn't succeed for whatever reason. And remember, your mind, your brain, it's going to remember what it was like the last time. So the next time you try to fast, it's going to say, no, 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 we're not fasting because it didn't work the last time, right? So brain, it has that memory. So it's not that the fast didn't work, is that we were not well rested. And so when we come into the fast, now we feel tired, fatigued, lack of energy. And remember, as the body is transitioning from one fuel source to another, energy may dip anyway. And if it dips and you are already spent in terms of your energy and your ability to maintain your process, right, your day, then that gets blamed on the fasting. So number one, make sure that you are well rested. Number two, make sure that you are well hydrated. Yeah, so fasting, so rested and hydrated. Let's see. I'm trying to think back how long ago now. There was one week where I came on and I was just feeling so drained. And then as I thought through the process, I had not been drinking much. Now, one of the things that I did last week or maybe 2 weeks ago was I started drinking, and as you know, I drink water and I drink zero sugar tea, sweet tea. That's this guy right here. And so a couple weeks ago, I decided, well, not decided, but I started drinking zero sugar Dr. Pepper. Zero sugar Dr. Pepper. And because I was drinking the Dr. Pepper, I didn't want to drink as much. And so I ended up so I cut back on the Dr. Pepper. I also cut back on water. And of course, I wasn't drinking the tea. And I was feeling those symptoms, the lightheadedness and palpitations. So hydration is very important. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is that if you're not well hydrated, then you can have swelling and you can have abnormalities in your electrolytes, right? So make sure that you are not ignoring hydration. So resting, hydration. Number three is to make sure that you're not coming out of or going into a stressful time. Yeah, coming out of going into a stressful time. Now, as I think back now to the nausea and so forth that I was feeling, part of it, I believe, is also that I had just come out of a relatively stressful time. We had gone camping, and you guys remember that story. So the hormones, right? The hormones that come out when we're stressed can short circuit or circumvent or make it difficult to kind of get through that process. Okay, so make sure you're not coming out of or going into a stressful time. And then, number four, make sure that on your eating days, that you're eating a nutrient-dense meal, right? We've talked about what good meals are, and I don't want to use that word good, but for lack of a better word, we're going to use that. So our prototypic good meal, or the meal that we want you to eat, is whole foods, right? We want to minimize processing, no added sugar, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, healthy fats, lean protein, tasty, and the appropriate portion size, right? So those, when you think of a meal, that's the meal that I want you to be thinking about, and the meal that I want you to be doing. Okay. All right. So make sure that you are rested, hydrated. Make sure you are not coming out or going into a stressful time, and then make sure that you are paying attention to hydration. Okay, so that's preparing for the fast. If you do a good job of preparing, then now let's talk through the fast. And when we talk about fasting, I usually divide this into three categories, right? And we do that 24 hours. So the first 24 hours, the next 24 hours at 48, and then the final 24 hours at 72, or if you go beyond that. Today, we're going to kind of break that up a little bit more finely, and we're going to talk about it in smaller chunks. So first of all, starting 0 to 6 hours. 0 to 6 hours, so fasting. And this is what's going on in the body as we are fasting, right? So the body is processing the last meal. So this is the postprandial phase. We're getting into fasting, but we've just finished eating, and the body is still processing, still digesting the food that we have eaten, right? Glucose levels will be elevated. Insulin will be elevated, kind of depending on what you've eaten. And the insulin is causing uptake of that glucose into the cells, right? So things are processing. Digestion is absorbing, is breaking down the stuff that you've just eaten. So that's all there. Energy levels are probably going to be high because you've just finished eating and the body's absorbing all the sugar, all the carbohydrates that are in the food that you've just eaten. Okay, your appetite can be stimulated, once again, depending on what has been transpiring prior to you getting into the fast. So if you just, before you got into the fast, just ate something that's highly processed, high carbs, high sugar, then the first several hours of fasting can be a little bit challenging, right? Because that sugar caused a huge spike, or that food caused a huge spike in blood sugar, and insulin comes out as a result of that. Okay? All right, and then the next 6 hours, so 6 to 12 hours, this is the early fasting state. So insulin levels begin to decrease as the blood sugar is being absorbed into the cells. Glycogenolysis is happening, so breaking down of glycogen into glucose. So we've gotten past the first 6 hours, the body stored glycogen, and now it's accessing that glycogen for energy. We've not gone into fat burning because we still have ample amount of glycogen and glucose in the body for processing. Energy levels begin to fluctuate as the body is now, the sugar that's in your blood has now been stored into the liver, and the body's used up the sugar that's floating around. It's now accessing glycogen in the liver, right? So there's that switch that we have, okay? All right, and then 12 to 18 hours. 12 to 18 hours. This is the transition to using fat. Transition to using fat. And glucose levels continue to drop as the body continues to use it up. The liver starts gluconeogenesis. That's creating glucose from non-carb sources, right? So ketones are low because we haven't quite gotten into that full fat burning yet. You may feel a dip in energy when we talked about the changes as we go through the different phases. So your energy levels may go down. People may become a little irritable, and hunger may still be there. And I tell people during the process of fasting, the first 8 to 10 hours is where my hunger is a big issue for me. Once I've gotten past those first 8 to 10 to 12 hours, then I am not prompted by quote unquote hunger or even appetite at that point. It is, well, so this is the appetite. By hunger, it is that I see people around me eating. It's noon, so it's lunchtime. It's supper time. Those social cues that I see that can prompt me to say, hey, you want to get something to eat, okay? And that typically goes away after those first 10 hours or so. I'll give it 10. It's actually probably a little earlier. And then from 18 to 24 hours, ketosis begins. This is where the body has, the body's depleted the glycogen stores, or it's near depleting, and it begins, and it's switched over now to burning fat instead of sugar. And so ketones begin rising, right? So glycogen stores are nearing depletion, leading to increased ketones as the liver metabolizes fat into ketones. Autophagy begins. Remember, autophagy is the body's reclamation, recycling process, where it goes out and it gets those broken, damaged, unused cells, and it begins to make those into new parts of the body, right? So that's one of those things that we want. We want to supercharge. We want to increase, big up as they say, the glycogen or the autophagy, right? So initial stages of mental clarity may begin. And we talked about mental clarity last in our last check-in. So this is the process. This is the time when we begin to see that, where the ketones are being created, a more steady source of energy, right? So the body has the beta hydroxybutyrate that's there. Remember, we have beta hydroxybutyrate and acetone, which is responsible for the smell that sometimes we get in the mouth during fasting. And autophagy is there, so inflammation is going down, oxidative stress is starting to go, and so that mental clarity is being revved up, and the brain is using those ketones for energy at that point. And then our next, so we're in ketosis. So we're in ketosis at this point, and so our next stage is when we get to 24 to 30 hours, and we're fat adapted at this point. So significant increase in ketones, they're being produced because we're not using glycogen anymore. The fat oxidation increases, and more fatty acids are converted into ketones. All right, so we're in the process of fully, right? We've changed over. Remember that hybrid car that we've talked about as an example that burns both gas and uses a battery? Well, during the process of switching, the body goes from burning carbohydrates, glycogen, and now it's burning fat and is converting that into ketones. Okay, so that's our fat adaptation. And we can continue on into, more longer fasts, but that's what's going on during these initial times. Now, during the fasting process, in order to be successful, I recommend a couple of things, particularly if you're doing an extended fast, right? What I recommend is that you, during this time, if you're going to fast, that you start the fast, if at all possible, later in the day, later in the evening. Why? Because when you wake up in the morning, your fast is already 8 hours, 7 hours, whatever number of hours you've slept. It's already that far on the way. Okay? Sometimes people say they like to start the fast in the morning because they get a good meal and that sets them up for success as they go throughout the day. You've got to listen to your body and you have to know yourself. For me, starting in the evening is better because I end my day with some food and I wake up in the morning and 8 hours have gone by. Well, for me, maybe 6 hours has gone by. And usually when you wake up in the morning, a lot of people are not hungry. Okay, so number one, if you can, and if that works for you, start your fast in the evening. Number two, if you're doing a shorter fast, don't fast on days where you're just hanging around the house. Fast on days when you are going to be busy, right? So your mind is already occupied with doing other things, and so the time goes by much quicker, right? So fasting. Let the people around you know. Let your family, your friends know, hey, I'm fasting on a particular day. And you can talk with them as they're planning different events so that they don't plan an event on a fasting day. Like if there's an option, I guess, obviously, right? If it's a birthday, then you can't change that. But if there's an option to change the day or do it a different time, then you can do that so that you can be out of your fasting window when this significant social event is happening. Right, so talk to the people around you. Don't make fasting this huge mountain, however. So don't show up at a party and say, "Oh, we can't. I'm not fast. I'm fasting today." Right. So the small group of people that you know, but we don't have to announce that to everybody because it gets into all kinds of other issues at that point. Okay. So make sure that you're doing that. So those are just some pointers for getting through the fast, and then of course. When we come now to breaking the fast, right? And we spent some time here just a little while talking about breaking the fast. And so as we're breaking the fast, some of the things that we want to be mindful of. Number one, when you are breaking the fast, you want to monitor blood sugars if possible, right? So if you have a glucose monitor, great. If you have a continuous monitor, great. If you don't, I recommend that you get one. So even though you're not diabetic, you can pick one up for relatively inexpensive, relatively cheap. I think the least expensive one that I found is the Walmart brand, and you can get test strips for. They're relatively inexpensive. Let me just say that, right? So monitor blood sugars, because what that does is it helps you to see what different foods do to your blood sugars. And so having that information, then you can make some decisions about how to proceed. Number 2, make sure that you're doing portion control. Portion control. And that goes back to what we talked about in terms of some places where people will have some challenges where they eat too much and they eat it too quickly, right? So portion control, very important. And then eat slowly, right? That goes back to eating too quickly. And then avoid sugary and processed foods. This is that initial meal that you're going to have post-fast. Hydration, very important. Don't ignore it. Water, coconut water unsweetened, herbal teas. Those are all good ways to get hydration. And if you don't like, a lot of people say they don't like the taste of just plain water. These are good ways where you can get some hydration in, where you're having something that you may like the taste of. And then, of course, protein, eggs, chicken, turkey breast, and tofu or tempeh for those of you who may be vegetarian or vegan. What does protein and fat do? Or what do protein and fats do? They help to satiate you. What does that mean? That means that they help you to stay fuller longer and satisfied longer. So if you eat something that's just totally carbs when you're breaking your fast, then the carbs are going to get digested quickly, particularly if there's not a lot of fiber in them, and then you're going to be hungry again. And so that just sets up a cycle already, right, for having stimulation of your appetite. So make sure that you are doing that. You're getting some good protein in there. And actually, several times I actually broke my fast with eggs. So I have a salad that I'm going to eat. Now that I'm talking to you, I think I may add some eggs to that. But I know that I can't break the fast with nuts. I can't break the fast with nuts. All right. Before we continue, let's hop over. I do see that. Let's see. So Grace. Hey, Grace. Grace says hello, everyone. Thank you for stopping through. Life with Ron. Say hello, Grace, and hello, Jennifer. Jennifer says the cucumber salad sounds great. Yes. I think, Jennifer, that's one I'm going to try. Right. I'm going to try that. See, next week we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, I'm going to try that. Jennifer saying hello all, and Grace says hello, Jen. Hope all is well. Definitely. Okay. And Grace says my go-to food to break my fast is soup. Yes, soup is very good. It's not typically too heavy unless you're having one of those like chicken and dumpling soup or something like that. Not too heavy, and it's filling. Okay, it's filling and it's light. And then coming off on the back of that, then you can add other things that you can eat. And then Jennifer says, "What is your favorite soup? Bought or homemade?" Yeah, good question. Good question, Grace. So here is my. So I don't make soup often, right? There was a time where I was making soup like every week. So I'll go out and so if I'm going to have soup, typically it's soup that I make, right? So I do have, several soups that I have here at the house. In fact, I went out today and I've got some soup because I'm going to do some stewed chicken, and I typically do the stewed chicken, and I put some mushroom soup in the chicken when I do it. But other than that, I'll go out and I'll buy a chicken and I'll cook that chicken or boil the chicken. Or here's a simple way to do it: so you go to someplace like Sam's or Costco, whatever your store is in your area, and I get a rotisserie chicken, and then I chop that rotisserie chicken up, and I put the bones in, and I boil those, and take them out, right? Get all that stuff out, and then I'll start with that as my stock, and that is where I make my chicken. Or for Thanksgiving, I'll take the turkey and I'll make soup out of that. So I tend to like that. So Jennifer says, we eat lots of eggs, have 18 laying hens, so egg cartons are always full. Definitely. Well, congratulations. I love that. I love that. And then Grace is saying mostly bought. So she's answering Jennifer's question about soups. Yeah, mostly bought. All right. So continuing on. So proteins. Make sure we got some proteins in there. And then healthy fats, right? Once again, we talked about fats and protein. Avocados, nuts, seeds. I should have bought some avocados when I went to the grocery store just a little while ago, but I didn't. Hey, those are good things. I think we may actually have some in the refrigerator. My wife likes avocados. I do too, but there may be some out there. And then broths, right? So back to kind of the soupy kind of thing. So vegetable broths, bone broths. For those of you who are vegan, vegetable broth is very good. And you're breaking the fast with it, so it's light. And you can even leave some vegetables in it if you want. And then some considerations. When breaking your fast, choose foods that help maintain stable blood glucose levels while offering nutritional value and are gentle on the digestive system. Yep. Focus on low glycemic index foods. And low glycemic tends to be glycemic index of 50 or less. Lean proteins, we talked about chicken, fat, fish, healthy fats, and then make sure that you are doing a good job of maintaining good hydration. Okay, so as we're talking about breaking the fast, we talked about some pitfalls, some places where people will have challenges, and then now we've put some meat on that as we talked a little bit here about breaking the fast. So let's hop back over and let's see, what do you think? If you already have done that, great. If not, go ahead and drop into the chat. What do you think? What do you think my ketones are going to be? We are now 68, 69 hours away from fasting, from our 72 hours. So let's hop over and let's take a look at what. So there's my Keto Mojo. And let me go over and grab my Keto Mojo app so we can get that synced. All right, so here is my Keto Mojo, and then let's go ahead and sync the app. Let's come up there in just a minute. Oh, got to turn it on, or it won't scan, right? It won't sync. All right, so what do you think? What do you think my ketones are going to be? I didn't look, so I didn't know what it is. So yesterday, I think it was 1.4. So let's see, maybe 1.7 or 2. Between 1.7 and 2. I know that's a big range, but okay, let's go. Here it is. Ah, okay, look at that. So blood sugar is 559 and ketones are 2.3. So when we talk about ketones, remember that ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 are considered nutritional ketosis. And then above 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. And right now I'm above 1.5. And if we look at the actual graph, the tan graph, that is blood sugar. And the turquoise graph, those are ketones. And so as I fasted, my blood sugars have gone down to what it was here, 59. And then the ketones have gone up to 2.3. And so remember, ketones and glucose can't coexist. Right? Ketones and glucose won't stay in the same space. So as my blood sugars went down, my insulin went down, so ketones came out. And as I start eating, depending on the concentrate or the composition of the things that I eat, then my ketones will start going down as my blood sugar goes up, and then the insulin comes out. Which is why I tried during those initial hours of breaking the fast, I try to kind of maintain some ketosis. So the things that I eat, I want to eat things that are less carby, so that my ketones will continue to be up, because that helps continuing to burn the fat, right? Okay, so let me hop over and let's take a look at my let's take a look at my Dexcom report. And as you know, as I'm talking, it logs out, so I'm logging back in so we can take a look at that. And so let's hop over and we'll take a look at my report here as it comes up. Here we are. Get that off the screen. All right, so let's see. Let's do this view. No, let's go to this one. I like this one. Okay, so you'll see there that my average blood sugar over the last 2 weeks has been 146, and that actually is coming down because over the last several weeks we've had interesting times, right? So that shows up there. If I go to my 90-day average, this is probably going to be about 120 or thereabouts. Okay, yeah, so 123 is what it is. I'm in target 87% of the time, and that target range is 70 to 180. If I were to get an A1C with these numbers, then my A1C, the glucose management indicator, is saying 6.3. Okay, that's what that is, 6.3. All right, and then let's go ahead and take a look at my daily graphs. I'll come up here in just a minute. And let's go back. And so we started fasting right here. Right, so 117. So 24 hours later, we're at 115, 118. 24 hours after that, we're 91. That was yesterday, Wednesday. And 24 hours after that, we're 86. And right, this is where we are right now, 81. And this is right where we had that break when we had to change the monitor. And so we're kind of straddling the 80s right now. And in fact, let's go back and take a look and see what my Dexcom is saying my blood sugar is right now. And it is saying that my blood sugar is 81. Yeah, okay. So that's in keeping with what we're saying, what we're expecting. Awesome. All right. Well, I love. So that's fasting. Fasting, what you need to know. Right? So fasting, what you need to know. That's what we do here on Fridays. We teach and we review that fasting. Now, next week, going into the weekend is going to be a holiday. So on Friday, we may do a recorded show or something else here on the channel, because I will be hopefully dipping my toe into some water or beach somewhere. But come on through, because we'll have something here for you. This week in review is on Sunday at 6 a.m. So make sure you join us for that as we go through that. And I want to remind you of the unlimited potential that you have at your fingertips. You have the ability to change your health. You have the ability to improve your wellness with education, empowerment, and encouragement like we do here on the show. And that's done through our Triple E formula for success. Educate, we empower, and we encourage. That's how we do what we do when we do what we do. And I want to encourage you, as you're coming through, make sure you join our challenges. We do a challenge every month, and our challenge for this month is to find 1 week, and we're just shy of end of the month, where you are not adding, or you don't have any added sugar in the foods that you're eating. So every month we have a challenge. So come through and make sure you join the challenges when you see them. And then share your story. Let us know. Are you fasting? Are you having some successes? Are you having places where you're struggling? When we hear your story, we know that we are not alone. And if you can do it, we can do it as well. And we get to rally around you as we support each other as a community. And then invite someone. Let them know that they can make a change to their family tree, to their community, to their church, to their home, to their doctor's office, wherever they are. Let them know, hey, let's go watch some of these shows together. Let's do this together. And remember our 3 pillars for reversing diabetes: decrease insulin, suppress appetite, and reduce your sugar. Hey. So glad that you're here. I do want to acknowledge before we kind of go off, I do see, so Jennifer says, I never guess. She's talking about the ketones. And then Steve is saying hello and howdy, Steve. And of course, Grace is saying hello to Steve. So everybody, if you've not done so, as I mentioned before, make sure you get back over. We are in the process of walking through reversing diabetes. And our last show was on part 2 of reducing sugar, the 3rd pillar. We will see you on This Week in Review, 6 a.m. on Sunday. That will be a recap of the shows that we did this week. And as always, I'm glad that you are here. Glad I got a chance to spend some time with you. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. Good night.